You ever wonder why, when you sew on a button nice and tight, it comes off? Well, there's a little problem here, and it's called the shank. So I'm going to show you what you need to do to make sure your buttons stay on. And when you learn how to sew the buttons on the way I'm going to show you, believe me, they won't come off. The garment will be falling apart, but the buttons will still be there. Now this particular button is one of you make yourself. And you see the shank? And when you put the button in and button it, the button really doesn't extend much above the buttonhole. Do you see? It needs that shank. So if you sew a button on tight and you don't put in a shank, the buttonhole will actually saw through the thread that you've used to sew the button on. And here's another button I have here, and you can see that also has a shank, and this is a flat button. I'm going to take some white thread so you can be sure and see what I'm doing. I'm going to bring the two ends together like that and wet them because it's cotton covered polyester thread, and wetting it strengthens the cotton covering of the thread. And put it through. And here I've got a little piece of muslin that was originally used to make something, and I'm going to just put the needle through, catch it in the, boy, I might think I was sewing through leather. Come through and catch the loop. And now I'm going to sew on a man's button first. When you sew on a man's button, you've got to sew it on so it's going to hold. Men's clothing is built like you build a tank. Men need to have clothing that will withstand stress. So the first thing I'm going to do is put it through one hole, and then I'm going to put it through the opposite hole, as you can see here. Needle back in again. And I'm going to hold it with my fingers so that I create a shank. And then I'm going to come back up again. See, I'm leaving it loose in there. Come through a hole that hasn't been sewn through before, and I'm putting it down through the last hole that hasn't been sewn through. And that's how you sew men's shirt buttons on. They are sewn with a crisscross. Right, now we have the shank in there. See that? I'm going to come back up. I'm going to go back down again, and I'm still crisscrossing. I've got the thread snarled up, and this happens to everybody, not just you. You might think you're the only one that ever happens to, but believe me, it happens to everybody. Okay, so I've got that straight. I'm going to bring it back up again. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind the thread around. And this makes the shank. Here's the shank. Can use some more thread on it yet. And then I'm going to go back up again through one of the holes that you can go through the last time. And back down through. And around again to get good stiff shank there. And then back in and pull it through underneath. And the shank is smaller than you think it's going to be. Do you see that? And now I'm going to sew again through these stitches here to lock in my stitching. Boy, this is just like sewing through leather. I think I'm going to put on a thimble for a change. And now you would sew it in to the placket like this. And that is how you sew on a man's button. And that button will stay on, and that has a shank in there. That might be a little bit longer of a shank than you really need, but you've got the idea, and that's how you sew a man's button. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.